Gunther von Hagens has been campaigning for people to pledge their bodies to medical science.
Donate your body for British science.
In just 2 days, he's rounded up 41 potential donors.
Your country needs you. Donate your body to Great Britain for medical science.
But what would happen to those donors after they've been dissected? I decided to spend a day finding out. I started in South London at an astonishing event.
Oh, well, it's a Thanksgiving service for all those who've donated their bodies to medical research. It happens annually, and I'm coming here because my mother donated her body 3 years ago.
Because my dad's donated his body to medical science, and this is the official occasion, if you like, for people who donated their bodies to be invited to the Thanksgiving service.
My father, who died in August last year, he wanted his body to go to science, and today was obviously the opportunity to, remember him.
Once a year, a memorial service is held for Britain's body donors. I wasn't invited, but it was attended by hundreds of relatives and friends. So, this was your husband?
Yes, it was my husband's choice. Years ago, he read an article in a magazine, and he decided that that's what he'd like to do when he died. Actually, he said, when you die, he said, you're either cremated or you're buried. He said, I wanted my body to live on in helping others.
What can you tell me about his motivation to donate his body?
My father, he had diabetes from a young age. He had a number of illnesses. He was registered blind. He had a heart attack about 6 years ago, and if it hadn't been for some experimental drugs, he wouldn't have survived. And it was his wish that he would want to be able to help other people.
As I talked to these families who'd come to pay their respects, I realised just how much respect they'd had to show for their loved one's last wishes. Tell me what happened after your mother had passed on.
Well, it was all very simple, really. I rang the anatomy office as soon as she had died, as soon as I could get through to them. They spoke to the doctor that came to the house who was certifying her death. And when I was able to get the death certificate from the registrar, forms had come to me from the London Anatomy Office the following morning, and everything sort of just went straight back to them.
In the future, 81-year-old donor Joyce Humphrey will be remembered here. What was it that made you decide to donate your body?
I really think that it's so essential that a body is not wasted. And there's such a big requirement for the student doctors to practice on these bodies.
And how did you go about it?
They rang me up first and said, thank you very much. Hope it'll be a long time before we see you. And I said, so do I. Then I got the forms to fill in, and I got my doctor to sign, and my sons, that they agree, they didn't mind. They was a bit reluctant at first, one of them. Thought it was a bit sad that the grandchildren wouldn't have anywhere to mourn me, but I talked them out of that.
What would you say to people who are thinking about donating?
When I try to talk other people into doing it, they'll say, well, how can I go to my maker when I'm all in bits? So
What do you say to that?
I say, well, what do you think happens to you when you die and you're cremated or buried? You're not whole anyway, not for very long.
I admired Joyce's certainty. But if I decided to donate, I know it would have an impact on my family. So what did the relatives here make of their loved one's decision, and of then following through their wishes? Can you recall what your reaction was when he first told you that that was his wish?
I can't specifically remember the actual time, but it's just something that we'd known for a long time. It'd just been mentioned in conversation and so on. And when we were aware that he was going to die, it was something that we discussed. And before he died, I was able to tell him that everything was being done according to his wishes, and he was able to squeeze my hand and say thank you,
What were the options for a funeral once your mother's body was released?
The first thing was I could not know anything about it at all, and my mother would be cremated in a normal way. I could have a service organised by the anatomy office, or I could take possession of my mother's body completely and have a normal funeral. I understood that I may not get my mother's remains back for 3 years, or anything up to 3 years. But I did get them back almost a year to the day that she died.
Because there's no body, you don't have the normal funeral arrangements that you would have. And so it was a question of putting together a memorial service for him. But one was still, I didn't have time to grieve at that point. And so I found myself surprisingly more upset today than I thought I would have been. But upset in a nice way, of course, you know.
Just shortly after my mother died, I was asked if I would like to attend the memorial service. And then at some stage, I think in the spring, I was advised when the date was. And it was at Southwark Cathedral. And I took all my close friends and relatives to the service. And it was absolutely wonderful. I mean, it was very uplifting indeed.
Today's service was led by Jane Steen, a canon of Southwark Cathedral. It was multi-denominational.
May the life force that ran in me shine forth once more and pass to you the knowledge and the power that helps sustain the miracle of life.
Well, I wonder if I can ask you what your impressions were of the service.
Oh, it was absolutely marvellous. It really is. It's such an emotional time, and everyone is there with the same purpose.
There were very few dry eyes in the house today, as I say. And it was just nice to be able to hold my mum's hand and just, you know, close your eyes for a minute and say, you know, cheerio, Dad.
Now, in the order of service, in addition to readings, I saw there was a long list of names. What's that?
Oh, that's all the names of the people who've donated bodies last year. But I did notice, sadly, that there were fewer names than there have been in previous years.
Did you know that there's actually a national shortage in body donors?
No, I didn't. No, it's surprising actually. It's one of those things that you don't actually hear about. You hear about the donor card for organs and so on, but for actual research purposes, it's not something you hear publicised, and perhaps it's something that should be better known or in fact offered on a donor card as an additional option, maybe. But no, I was not aware.
And there was something I wasn't aware of either. It turns out that medical students often attend these services voluntarily. And who did I run into but Kira, who was with us in Eastbourne? I have to say I was really surprised and impressed to see medical students paying their respects alongside the families. What are you told about the cadavers that you're going to dissect?
Absolutely nothing at all. They're quite strict about that. They don't let us know what age they were when they died, what they died from, or where they lived. In the lab, it's easy to forget that this was a person and that they had families and lives. And I think coming here is sort of acknowledging that and, you know, acknowledging they were people and respect. We're so grateful that they gave their bodies in the first place.
So that's the end of Gunther's journey, and it's the end of my journey too. I was surprised not to find the fear of body donation that I'd been expecting. I was surprised that it was easier to donate a body than I'd anticipated. And I was surprised that if anyone's squeamish about this subject, it's the government and not the people. I started out this journey worrying a little, in truth, that it was all going to be a ghoulish quest. But I have to say, I feel differently now. In just 2 days, we found 41 potential donors who found the topic anything but ghoulish. And by the way, if you're considering joining them, in just a few moments, we'll tell you how to find out more information. So there it is. Body donation is obviously not for everyone. But in my view, the reason there's a shortage is not that the public doesn't want to know, it's because the medical establishment doesn't want to ask. It was a point Gunther felt obliged to make in a letter to Her Majesty's Inspector of Anatomy at the Department of Health.
Dear Dr. Jeremy Matters, I was sorry to learn that the British body donation program is in difficulty and that donations have plummeted. Medical education in Britain has been dear to my heart ever since my previous campaigns here to democratize anatomy. Like in Germany, I've always found the British people very willing to donate their bodies to anatomy. So I decided to try to help. I came to England, went out on the street to talk to people and discovered that happily a large proportion seemed willing to donate. They just didn't know how to go about it or even that there was a shortage. I have 3 tips for how to improve your body donor program. First, open anatomy departments to the public at least once a year. Second, make people as aware of body donation as they are of organ donation. Third, abandon the need for witnessed consent. In the meantime, I enclose the names and addresses of 41 people who told me they wanted to know how to donate their body to you. I trust you will be in touch with them and hope this is of some assistance. Yours ever, Gunther von Hagens.